webinar. Thank you again to our captioner, Heather, who's from the Center for Inclusive Design and Innovation with the Georgia Institute of Technology. We appreciate you. Again, I'll be sure to share all materials after the webinar. Throughout our discussion today or the presentation, please feel free to jump in with questions, throw them in the chat, raise your hand using that function, or at a pause, you can holler out and let us know you have a question or a comment. We're excited to take those. So I think without further ado, let's get started with unraveling transportation options and solutions. As many of you know, transportation is one of the most frequently cited challenges or barriers related to obtaining and maintaining competitive integrated employment for many Iowans with disabilities, those who cannot afford cars or who do not drive cars, particularly in rural areas, right, need accessible, affordable transportation options to bring them to employment, but also to kind of support everything around employment, health, care, education, housing, and community life, right? And make that as integrated and fulfilling and as individualized as possible. And so we are so lucky today to have Kristen Haar, who is the Public Transit Director for Iowa's Department of Transportation, as well as Emma Simons, who's Iowa's statewide mobility manager. And she's also the chair of the Iowa Transportation Coordination Council. So we have some really excellent experts and partners with us today to help facilitate the conversation and share with you information, resources, as well as would love to take your questions and help tackle maybe there's some problem solving that you might need to do. And so we have the best of the best with us here today. So I'll hand it over to Kristen to get us started.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's been a few years, but I've presented to your group quite a while ago. Like I said, it's been a few years, but probably a good time for a refresher on kind of transportation in Iowa, public transit, and some other passenger transportation. Well, my slides are not wanting to advance, of course. There we go. Okay. So just a quick map. We've got our map of Iowa's public transit system here. And you'll see by the thick black borders that there are 16 regional systems that are multi-county in nature. And then we have 12 large urban agencies that serve cities or urbanized areas over 50,000 in population. And then we have 7 small urban agencies that serve cities with populations under 50,000. So in total, 35 public transit agencies in the state. So all 99 counties have some type of public transit. I realize some people will say, but truly there is some form of public transit in each county. Availability, hours, days of service all vary by funding, bus availability, driver availability. So it does vary as to how often the public transit is available in each county, but at least there is some coverage for the whole state. We don't have our 2023 fiscal year statistics wrapped up quite yet, but in 2022, our statewide ridership was 15.1 million. So of those, 13.1 million rides were provided by the 19 urban systems, and 2 million rides were provided by the 16 regional systems. And so to compare, I looked back just a year earlier than that to 2021. The statewide ridership in the very depths of the pandemic was only 10.3 million. But in 2019, our statewide ridership was almost 24 million rides. So the pandemic did take a dramatic hit to our public transit usage in the state. Still has not fully recovered even today. Like I said, we haven't finalized those stats yet. I'm not expecting them to be 24 million, but hopefully better than even fiscal 22. So something over 15 million for the year. So we'll see about that probably in the next month or so when we get those finalized. So public transit really is funded by a lot of different sources that are all puzzle pieced together to make the transit systems run. And the largest funding source are local funds, actually, not state or federal shares. Local is the biggest source of funding. Passenger fares also help with funding public transit, although they make up a relatively small amount of the budgets. Advertising revenue, contract revenue, and then the state does have some funds that we give to the transit agencies called state transit assistance, and then the Federal Transit Administration. We have grants from the FTA that help us fund our transit systems throughout the state. So the local funds are generated from city and county general funds, or there are in some communities, some cities, specific property tax levies for public transit. So public transit levies on your property taxes. You may have heard recently about some of the funding woes that are being experienced by DART here in Des Moines, and that they are trying to assess a franchise fee on utility bills within the city of Des Moines to help supplement their budget, because the funding is maxed out at their property tax levels, and the other funding sources just aren't quite high enough to help pay for the increased wages and other costs that they're experiencing, maintenance. So that's why they're asking for that utility bill levy from the city of Des Moines. And so I know that's been in the news a lot lately about possible service cuts for the city of Des Moines. We also do have state transit funds, and ironically, that's based on sales of vehicles and vehicle accessory equipment. So anytime you buy a new car, you're actually helping public transit. So if you're choosing to drive in a single occupant vehicle, then you're actually helping public transit. So seems a little bit backwards, but that's where the funding source is. And then we also have federal transit funds, and where those are spelled out is in the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, 3 years ago or so, 2 or 3 years ago. So that's where the federal funds are spelled out for public transit. So I thought I'd go through, just because it has been a while, the different types of public transit that are offered in Iowa. So fixed route is by far going to be the one that people, when you hear the word transit, this is what pops into your head. Fixed route is what is provided in most of the urbanized areas where the buses travel along a set route. There are set stops and time points that the buses have to meet. You don't need any advanced reservation, excuse me. And the service is available to the general public, including persons with disabilities. The buses all have either lifts or ramps to help with accessible equipment that a person might be using. So that's how the fixed routes are operated in the cities, and probably what you think of when you think of public transit. There are, however, a couple other kinds of public transit that are in use in the state and offered in the state. One has to be accompanied by the fixed route public transit services, and that is complementary paratransit. So anytime you have a fixed route, you also need the complementary paratransit that operates in a minimum 3/4 of a mile around a fixed route. So this is to help people that aren't able to get to the fixed route physically, to have public transit service, and the passengers do need to meet ADA qualifications in order to ride and make ride reservations, typically the day before your desired trip. And the bus picks up the passenger at their location and takes them to their destination. And the fares by law for this service can be no more than double the regular fixed route fare. So if your fixed route fare is $1, then your paratransit fare can be no more than $2. And there can be no trip purpose restrictions. So if someone wants to use the paratransit to go to a bar, that's perfectly fine. There can't be any trip purpose restrictions, such as saying you can only use this to go to the doctor or the grocery store or something like that. So it can be used for any purpose. And the hours do need to match or exceed the hours that are provided by the fixed route system. So those it needs to be complementary in all of those ways. Then we have demand response service, which operates a little bit like the ADA complementary paratransit. The difference being that this is operated mainly out in the 16 regions, and the ride reservations are made in advance, normally 24 hours, although that's probably becoming kind of antiquated because a lot of systems are acquiring software that allows for faster response times, reservation times. So I probably need to check my information there to see if 24 hours is still a good number to be using, because I do think that they are becoming more responsive with their software abilities. And just like paratransit, the bus picks up the passenger at their location and takes them to their destination. However, this service is something you don't need to qualify for. You don't need to apply to ride this service. It's available to the general public, including persons with disabilities. And so if you see this out in the rural areas, just know that it's available to anybody. So not just the elderly, not just persons with disabilities, anyone can call and ride this bus. You may be thinking, well, I know that my grandmother had to apply to ride this. Well, some of the transit agencies do receive funding from the area agencies on aging, and that does require some documentation. And so they probably do have to fill out some paperwork in order to qualify for the reduced rate or for the donation fare. But just to ride generally, you don't need to apply to ride these demand response services. So one way that we are trying to show people some other types of public transit or passenger transportation, not necessarily public transit, is through Iowa Rideshare. And iowarideshare.org will be relaunching in 2024. We are having it redone. We are going with a new vendor. And what Iowa Rideshare does is match up people with either single rides. So if you have a person that needs to go from point A to point B, and perhaps somebody has registered in the system as going from point A to point B, you can put in the trip that you're looking for, and maybe there's somebody in the system that is going the same direction and you could ride with them. So you could carpool with them. Obviously not public transit. You know, we have nothing to do with that really, other than to provide this kind of matching service. This also will show you van pools that might be available in the local region if you're more interested in a regular service that's running to get to a employment option or something like that. So iowarideshare.org is going to be relaunching, and it's not available currently, but it is going to be redone here in this year. So what it does, like I was saying, and kind of bumbling through a bit, was that it assists Iowans and visitors with finding viable commute options, including carpool partners, van pool routes, transit routes, and then cycling buddies. So if you wanted to find somebody to ride the trails with to go to work or something, you could put that on there as well. So you can use it for regular commutes or to do your ride on a one-time basis. And Those who are interested in van pools, if the van pool is locally available, you'll be redirected to a local public transit van pool website to get you all of that information for signing up for that. And persons with mobility devices are able to participate in van pools. Accessible vehicles are available. I'm guessing that that is not something that people realized could be accessible, but they are required if somebody uses a mobility device and wants to participate in a van pool and can get to the meetup spot and all of that, just like any other passenger, then the vehicles are accessible to those using mobility devices. So just keep that in mind, that it is an option, even for people that need those. So in getting through this pandemic, as I said, all of the ridership has kind of gone down. It's coming back. But public transit services aren't necessarily looking the way they looked 5 years ago. And so coordination really is more important now than ever before. And so we have a few examples here of some coordinated services that were done through grants that were received from the Developmental Disabilities Council back a couple years ago already, but also just kind of giving you an example of some things that are possible. So coordination, yeah, really is important more than ever. And that became very evident during the pandemic. And the ways that public transit helped with coordinated transportation was to provide routes to vaccination sites, providing the wheels for Meals on Wheels. We did that in multiple regions, providing that service with the bus actually doing the meal delivery for Meals on Wheels, but then also local nursing homes and disability service organizations partnering with public transit to provide transportation for more social outings for clients. That was some of the projects that came out of our disability, developmental disabilities grants. So as I mentioned, so back in December 2020, the DD Council contacted the Iowa DOT about having some funding available. They had about $100,000. And the purpose was to get persons with developmental disabilities out into their communities and to address challenges experienced by persons with disabilities to getting into their community and being able to participate in activities. So in consultation with Brooke Lovelace, the DD Council Director, we created an application package for the public transit agencies, and the selected projects began 2 years ago. 3 years ago, sorry, already 2024. This is probably really tiny on your computer screens, but this is the news release we did for the projects that were selected. And I'll go into more detail about each of these, but we selected projects from Ames, Marshalltown, Region 6, which is People Rides, Region 8, and then Region 11. So I'll go into a little more detail about each of those here. So for SciRide, these funds actually did not go to providing service. They went to providing automated passenger counters that are more than just the typical counter that just counts the number of people on a bus. They actually relay that information back to the apps that SciRide uses. And so people can look at the buses that are on the routes in Ames and can determine if a bus is super full and they don't probably want to get on right then because it's going to be too crowded for their mobility device, or too many germs running around, or just don't like to travel with that many people. So they can make a decision about what bus they take and when. And so this supplemented another grant that SciRide received, a COVID-19 research grant that put these automated passenger counters on 74 other buses. This finished out the fleet. So they were able to do another 4 buses. Excuse me. That's what I get for talking too much. So like I said, SciRide's passengers could now see the real-time capacity of the buses through the transit agency's mobile apps. And that allows the individual to choose the trip that is less crowded so they can feel safer, maybe from contacting viruses or illnesses, or if they have some anxiety about traveling with too many people, they're able to choose a less crowded bus. And this was actually part of a larger project that included automated stop announcements that were a request from an ISU disability group that wanted the SciRide bus stops announced throughout the system. By law, SciRide only has to announce stops at major intersections and major attractions or major stops throughout the system, not at every single intersection. And with this automated system, the driver no longer has to worry about doing that. The automated system takes care of that. And so that's helpful both to the driver and to the passengers who may not be able to visually see where they are at throughout the um, route or throughout the system. So in Marshalltown actually came up with a project to help kids with disabilities be able to more fully participate in summer day camp that the city was offering. So they created a route with school-aged children in mind to help them access recreational opportunities around the city that also included access for a day camp for young people with disabilities. And that allowed them to more fully be a part of the day camp activities. So the bus stops included like the softball complex, the library, the pool, and several city parks. And most passengers had never used public transit before, and they were really excited to learn how to use it. The route was open to the public, so anybody could ride. You didn't only have to have a disability, but if you had a disability, it was all fully accessible and you could ride to these same locations that you might not have otherwise been able to get to during the summer, especially on the break from school. So that was a pretty exciting project for the city, and it actually went so well. They were able to continue that for, I think, 1 or 2 more years. Unfortunately, with budgets the way they've been, did have to cut that, I believe, last summer. They did have to discontinue that, but it was a success. And if we ever have a windfall of money again, I'm guessing they will probably try and restart that because it was a successful route for them. I'm going to take a drink, excuse me. All right. So Region 6 is another central Iowa region. It actually includes Marshalltown, but it includes 4 counties in central Iowa. And they were awarded a grant to assist CERC and Mid-Iowa Workshop clients to access pre-vocational volunteer opportunities, recreational and entertainment outings, and long-distance medical appointments. And at that time, CERC really only had one non-ADA compliant vehicle for their 4-county region. So the staff was having to use their own vehicles for appointments and necessary activities, but recreational outings weren't really possible using all of those means. So they were able to plan a couple of more fun recreational outings for persons using mobility devices. So they could, especially after all the COVID social distancing, get out and be out in the community. So 2 of the group outings that they were able to do were to the state fair and to Blank Park Zoo. Unfortunately, after the funding ran out, they weren't able to continue doing too much of this, but at least for that summer, they were able to work together and provide some recreational outings for those residents. Up in Region 8, which is the region around Dubuque, they did a similar project to the one done by Region 6. They worked with a couple of their, I'll go to the next slide. They worked with a couple of their local residential homes, so area residential care, Hills and Dales, and Imagine the Possibilities, to pilot a program to assist with their residents' transportation needs. And so they were able to get back out into the community, just like those I mentioned in Region 6, and they could do, more recreational fun things than just going to the doctor and then going back home. So this did help them get out and about into the community. And then finally, this was a study that was done. So HERDA, which is the Region 11 that is in central Iowa, was awarded a grant to contract with Easter Seals Project Action Consulting to conduct an accessible transportation community initiative for their region. So they formed 3 coalition groups with similar demographics, and they did some facilitated discussions to determine the types of accommodations or barriers that exist or accommodations they needed in order to more fully access HERDA. And so some of the items that came out of this work were designing some marketing materials that were specific to people with disabilities. And they worked with people with disabilities in designing those. They also made the bus signage bilingual, as they serve a very large Spanish speaking population. So that helped obviously the entire population, but also those with disabilities or caregivers who spoke Spanish, especially in Perry. And then they also were able to get an AmeriCorps volunteer that could help them form some volunteer driver programs. And I think they did that in 2 or 3 of their counties, I don't recall. And then to address long call wait times, they actually had one of the focus group members had some disabilities and had some really good feedback on ways that they could address those long call wait times, but also address the needs of the callers and make it much more smooth on both ends. And so they were able to cut those call wait times, or at least make them a little more tolerable for everyone calling in to reserve rides. So we've also, in the past couple years, seen our transit agencies trying some new and unique things, at least to Iowa. Starting in 2018, the 380 Express commuter bus has been operating between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. That was originally started because all of the construction on I-380, and the Iowa DOT, with some of our highway construction dollars, actually funded that service to help alleviate some of the traffic through there during construction. And it's been so successful. We've been able to convince the powers that be, the holders of the highway funding purses, to extend some of those funds out through, I can't remember how far we're going, I think 2026. And then we'll have to probably find a different way to fund this service, but it's been enormously popular going between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. Speaking of Iowa City, just last August, they started offering free fares for transit riders. And I think their ridership has gone up something like 40% or something. It's been a really, really positive turnaround for them.
Office.
Oh, okay. And then that same thing of providing free fares for passengers is also under consideration in Waterloo. They're talking through that as they work on, I think, a 2030 plan for the city. We've had micro transit adopted in the DART service area that serves Des Moines. So it operates similar to a rideshare service like Uber or Lyft, but it's provided by the public transit provider. Speaking of Uber and Lyft, there are some Uber and Lyft partnerships with some of the transit agencies that provides on-demand service within the DART area. So that helps provide some more individualized service in their service area. And then Region 13, SWITA, is our powerhouse of workforce shuttles. They really, really have taken the employment transportation challenges to heart and have several workforce shuttles that have been extremely, extremely popular and successful for them. So they've really been expanding those in the past few years and making sure people can get from the rural areas into the urban areas for work. So they've been pretty busy out there. So everybody's budgets are tight. We don't need to tell you that. Our bus prices are going through the roof. Some bus prices have gone up 50%, maybe more. And so it's been hard to get new buses, supply chain issues, all of that you hear about for all kinds of things, not just buses. So it's been really important for us to try and coordinate between the agencies. And so that's, I think, what I'm going to leave you with is that we really need agencies such as yours to coordinate with your local public transit agencies. Let them know what you need, but also let them know what you bring to the table. And, maybe we can all work together to provide more personalized services or services that are needed in these communities. So that's, I think, where I'm going to leave this and turn it over to Emma, who's going to talk about some mobility management, who helps people kind of tie all these things together, and then the Iowa Transportation Coordination Council a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over to Emma.
Yep. Hi, and good afternoon. So I'm just kind of going to give a little overview of what mobility management is. So Kristen, if you go to the next slide. Yep. Just to kind of start off though, I'm going to talk about the Iowa Transportation Coordination Council. So I'm the chair of this council, as previously chaired by Kristen Haar, and we meet bi-monthly and we discuss issues such as mobility management, accessibility of transportation in Iowa. We go through the state transit assistance special projects proposals with applications that pertain to coordination in the state, and the encouragement of state and local agencies' involvement in passenger transportation planning process. So recently, we've been working on the 2024 Iowa Passenger Transportation Summit, which I'll talk about in a couple slides later. And we've also had someone speak on veterans transportation, someone speak about the HERDA Health Connector project that they're working on. And we've also kind of been reviewing legislative priorities in regards to transportation. Next slide. Okay. So with mobility management, its ultimate goal is to help passengers navigate their systems. So several public transit agencies across the state employ mobility coordinators to assist with persons in planning their trips. We don't have as many as we used to, but they do provide vital information to those using transit or other transportation services. So my role at the DOT as a statewide mobility coordinator is to receive questions, concerns, and help guide people who maybe don't have a mobility manager in their region. So what I do is try to reach out to the transit agencies and other stakeholders, other agencies that could help with the transportation and getting that person from A to Z. So this is basically a case management approach to transportation. We're helping a person navigate how to get from point A to point Z, and it might not necessarily be through public transit. So it might require more than one transportation mode, and just kind of figuring out what the best formula is with transportation for that individual person. So some mobility managers offer travel training to teach potential passengers how to use public transit system. I know Kelly Schneider at in Johnson County, she has done that with some Kirkwood students. So it ultimately enables greater independence for these individuals and increases their confidence in navigating the transit system, because a lot of people either don't know what their transit provider, who their transit provider is, how to use public transit, and ultimately, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to get to where they need to go. So this map shows the distribution of the mobility managers in Iowa. You can see that some of them aren't necessarily employed as a mobility manager, but they serve in that role for their region. So we have Council Bluffs, and then we have SWITA, which is the light pink. We have HERDA, which is in green, and then Polk County has one, and Johnson County has one employed by Human Services. So as I noted, their current mobility managers serve Johnson County, Polk County, Omaha, Council Bluffs Metro, HERDA, and then SWITA. So the areas that are not served by a mobility manager, you can contact me and I can help assist anyone who's in need of finding transportation. And then on the link, that's going to show you the map with all the contact information for the mobility managers. So how to get involved with public transit. So one of the main things is to contact your local public transit manager. A lot of people, a great resource is our website. We have all the updated contact information for the transit agencies, their hours, fares, and just a bunch of their information, which counties they serve. If anyone needs help accessing that, you can send them my way, and I'm more than happy to go through that. Another way to get more involved with public transit is to become active with the local transportation advisory group, also known as TAGS. So through systems planning, they have a PDF for their tags. So with these tag groups, you can reach out to the transit agencies from those contacts, or with the Council of Governments, or MPOs, should have the information to get you connected in those public meetings. Another way to get involved is to give input into the passenger transportation plan developed by the local transportation planning agency in the transit advisory group. So these plans are a good way of, they evaluate, assess kind of the current transportation scene in your specific RPA or MPO. So getting involved with those, they usually have public input meetings, I believe, that will can help. And then the next one. So, and then, okay, so this is for the 2024 Iowa Passenger Transportation Summit. So this event is free to register and is perfect for anyone who's interested in learning more about passenger transportation in Iowa. The registration will be opening soon. This year, it's going to be held on May 8th. At the FFA Enrichment Center in Ankeny, Iowa. We are currently working on the 2024 agenda, but some previous year's topics have been age-friendly transit. We did some passenger interviews, which we're hoping to do again this year, but in person. And then just different public transit options. And then we also had a panel on statewide refugee support. So we tried to reach a broad range of topics through this, and it's a really great place for people to come together to network and to learn more about how we can coordinate transportation from all of our different agencies, public transit agencies. So if this is something you guys are interested in, I can definitely send out the registration link. It's open to the public, free to register. It's always a good time and always some good food. So, and I always love meeting new people. So that is what I have. And there's my contact information. So please feel free to reach out to me if you want any more information. But yeah, happy to talk to you guys today.
Thanks, Emma and Kristen. I had a question about, you were just talking about getting a hold of your local public transit manager and or participating in the advisory groups, the local advisory groups. Is that a good way to tackle and talk about and brainstorm around any ideas that you might have or barriers that you're seeing, you know, patterns in like inaccessibility or like a need? Is that a good place to, whether it be a provider or like a local partner, to kind of brainstorm those with transit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's definitely the best place to go. contacting your local public transit manager and letting them know what your needs are or what you're seeing around the community is absolutely the best way to initiate some change. And budgets are tight, but they want to serve the people that need their services. So yeah, they absolutely would be happy to talk with you and work with you as much as able. And yeah. And then the transportation advisory groups are really good for looking a little more long term, but also good for a little, Emma used the right word a few minutes ago, networking, where you may be seated at the table with other agencies that also need public transit. And maybe, you wind up talking amongst yourselves and say, hey, if we all coordinate on this project, maybe this is something the transportation agency can provide that meets all of our needs, not just one organization's needs. So both of those places are really good avenues for that.
Nice. I had another question about the ride share that's come in. And like you said, the public transit helps maybe like coordinate that or offer that, I should say, but it's not. So I guess my questions were just like thinking about the variety of job candidates and families that we serve. Is there any like background checks or stipulations to signing up as like a ride share provider? So you wouldn't necessarily know that somebody offering a ride, if they had their license, you would assume that, hope that. But right, is there any of that? Just thinking of people who might be willing to use that, but maybe just have some trepidation around people having their license or insurance and just like those kinds of things.
Emma, do you want to tackle that one or do you want me to?
I guess I haven't been super involved with the back end of scheduling.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So no, we don't do any background checks on people, especially for the carpooling. The van pools, yes. If those are organized by a local public transit agency, yes, they're going to do more vetting. Obviously, they're going to make sure about, because the van pool participants are actually the drivers as well. 2 of them from each van are usually registered as the drivers. And so they have to go through all of the transit agencies, driver qualifying things, and then they get to basically use the van for free. They don't have to pay the monthly fare that other passengers in the van pool would pay. But for the car pools, doing the one-to-one, kind of like when you were in college, ripping off the little corner off the sheet on the bulletin board that you need a ride to Iowa City or something for the weekend. We don't have that in as part of the system. However, and this is how the old system worked. How the new one works, I'm not exactly sure because we haven't gotten that all designed yet. But the way the old one worked was you don't exchange information with anybody until you find somebody you think you're interested in matching up with, and then you don't actually give them any of your personal information until you're ready to do that. So if something just seems off, then don't give them your personal information. And then, it would be up to the individual to make sure that, they're insured and have the license and all that kind of stuff. So we don't go into all of that, unfortunately.
Understandable. I think Catlin maybe wanted to add to this part of the conversation.
Should have all the answers.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, Kristen she kind of beat me to it as I was typing in that I could add to it. So DART has a relatively robust rideshare program that serves actually 20 counties throughout the state. So we don't just serve Polk County. And, like Kristen was saying, our process in that, as we are recruiting passengers for those van pools, you know, the number one question that we have is, would you be willing to drive the van? And for those that are willing, we do annual driving checks on seeing what their driving records are, making sure that they're still qualified to drive that van. And then we host the insurance on the van, because those vans we're providing, we cover the gas,
Right.
you know, for all of that. So, you know, there's a pretty robust system in which we manage that process, you know, to try to make sure that there is some oversight in that. But we also do driver training with all of our van drivers as well, to make sure that they understand, you know, obviously at that point, they've probably driven a personal vehicle, but not everyone has
Right.
driven you know, 12 to 15 passenger van. And that does take a little bit of extra effort and a little bit more understanding of kind of how to be aware of your surroundings and things like that. So, you know, we do that on a pretty regular basis as well, just to make sure everyone feels comfortable with that. And we'll do kind of retrainings if we hear from passengers about a specific driver that might be struggling with driving the van and things like that. So as much as we can, we definitely try to manage those drivers. And you know, they are volunteers, so they're not paid by DART, but they do get to drive the van for free if they're able to do that.
Nice. How would you know or how do you find out if one of your counties is one of the 20 counties where the rideshare is offered? Maybe the van rideshare specifically.
Yeah, so if it's if it's a DART ride share, you would just contact DART. We
Okay.
have a rideshare supervisor and an assistant who manage that system. On our website, we do have some ways that people can get more information and submit interest in joining a van pool. But the best way is just to call and ask. We typically, I know in the past, and I know it's changed a little bit with COVID as more people are working from home, but in the past we used to collect and have kind of a rolling kind of list of people who are kind of waiting for a van pool to, you know, because really a van pool works best if you have, you know, 6+ people who are all traveling in the same direction. So if maybe we only had 4, we'd put everyone on a little bit of a wait list until we got enough interest to kind of develop that new van pool. But yeah, the best way is just to reach out and we can look into kind of what we might have out on the road. Because the reality is, you know, with COVID, a lot of our van pools dropped from maybe being full to being half full. So there's a lot more flexibility and room in some of those van pools to add people. And then we can kind of coordinate with them, you know, where are you going? What time do you need to be there? And then we do a lot of that kind of connection work, and then pass it on to the driver of the van, who then is responsible for the pickup and the coordination of, hey, this is where we meet, this is what time I'll be there, and all those types of things.
Cool.
Are you still seeing my screen? I brought up like the phone number for DART, the customer service, so you can learn more that way about.
Oh, Kristen, it's actually still on your presentation.
Is it? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know if it switched over to the website or not. Okay.
And I'll drop a link in there that
There you
has
go.
our rideshare information on it.
Yeah, that would be good.
And there are several other regional agencies that have like their own separate van pools. So if you, for instance, Region 10's had one for a while. So Cedar Rapids area. So then you would contact Region 10 if you have interest in that too. So
Yep. Corridor rides over there. But another thing I think that I was looking at DART's website quick there, and what triggered in my mind was, you know, a lot of people when they do van pools are kind of trepidatious about it, because what if you're needed at home? You know, your kid gets sick and you need to go home, or you get sick and you need to get home. Most of these van pool programs have guaranteed ride home. So they will come out and get you and take you home if you have a need to do that prior to your whole van leaving and going home after work. So it is really reassuring that when you're a van pool participant, that would be available to you. So I know that kind of alleviates some of those fears about trying the van pool.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if there's any other questions from folks on with us today. Something that Is there, yeah, let me double check our chat. What struck me about when you were reviewing for us again about mobility managers and some of the like one-to-one training that you can do with folks, that's just a great, I think it's just a great option, especially for like employment specialists, job developers, job coachers that are on with us today, or even those supporting students, you know, so whether you're like a para educator or an educator, I would think that would be a great option for somebody that might need a little more individualized support and learning some of that stuff, or like what a great like pre-ets activity or like transition activity for a student that might need that support or that learning. That seems like a really great option or opportunity maybe for them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I pop in to make a comment
Please.
about that, Jess?
Yeah.
So I recognize a lot of people on the call, and I realize I just kind of like jumped into this conversation. My name's Catlin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the mobility coordinator here in Des Moines at DART, formerly with Candeo. So I've worked with a lot with this group and some of the disability service providers in the area. You know, one of the things that I think is really important about mobility management and some of that travel training is, you know, for my position in particular, so I work with like refugees, students with disabilities, seniors, a lot of different populations. So I don't really have the capacity to do one-on-one trainings. So what we've really found has been really helpful is actually partnering with some of the agencies and doing staff training, kind of like a train the trainer model. And that's really helped equip some of those staff who are in those positions who honestly are going to know your clients better than I can over the course of, you know, a couple hours, to provide that training to staff who then can turn around and work one-on-one with clients, to, you know, do it in the manner and the time frame that's going to work best for them. Because the reality is, you know, learning how to do something new is scary. Getting on a bus that you've never gotten on before and you maybe don't know exactly where it's going, and then you add maybe getting on the bus with a stranger like me, you know, it can be a little intimidating. So I think that for the agencies that I've worked with that have staff go through that training, they've found a lot of value in their staff being more knowledgeable and more comfortable than going off and doing the individualized training on their own. And, you know, I know a lot of the school districts, at least here in the Des Moines Metro, utilize me to come and meet with their students as well. So, you know, I think there's just a lot of opportunities out there where, you know, we can, you know, as mobility managers, you know, Emma covers most of the state, right? I cover one county. You know, we can't necessarily be everywhere, but can we get the information in front of the people that need it the most to then kind of trickle that down to those who really need the information and want to be more independent?
Thank
Sorry.
you. Yes. No, that's
as you can
great.
tell, I'm like passionate about this, right?
Yeah. And he wasn't even a plant. I mean, Catlin's just here as a bonus.
I saw Kristen on the agenda and I was like, I have to come to this.
We're so glad you did. Hey, Mandy, did you have something to share or ask? Sorry, I saw you unmute. Just making sure.
Not me, right?
You, Mandy. Yes, darling. Sorry. I just saw
did,
you
sorry.
unmute.
If I unmuted, it was purely by accident.
Well, glad you're here
I'm good,
today.
but
Thank you.
for checking.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any additional questions, thoughts, ideas? Well, hearing none, thank you again, Kristen, Emma, and Catlin, for joining us today and sharing all this great information and resources. We really appreciate